Is there a place in time where logic breaks down and wonderment begins? Could that be somewhere at some time along an infinite line between the reasonable and the highly unlikely? Join us on a journey into the improbable. Makeshift Stories presents Episode 297, Aurora's Self-Serve Medical Shop, read by Kathleen Connolly. Opening and closing theme by Matthew Erdmann. Somewhere and sometime, the desire to change oneself might go too far.
The sun was just a promise in the morning sky when Aurora stopped under a flickering streetlight across from her family's business, Kumar's Self-Serve Medical, to warm her hands. She cursed herself for not bringing gloves, but the weather was too erratic to predict, especially in the fall. The end of her nose was ice cold, and her breath formed little clouds of exhaust, which hung around her in the still morning air. The big S in the shop's LED sign sputtered before the rest of the letters went dark. Aurora checked her handheld. It was a little early for the sign to turn off. She'd have to fix that when she had time, but another part of her didn't want to change a thing. If the timing was good enough for her grandmother who had started the self-serve, why should she change it? Aurora blew into her hands and crossed the street, stopping in front of the shop door so that the lock could scan her retinas. The thing hummed, then after a moment clicked open and she stepped through to be greeted by the acrid smell of disinfectant. "Aurora, is that you?" The familiar voice came from the rear of the shop. "Morning, Eva," Aurora called back. "Hope you don't mind. I came in early," Eva explained. "I need to leave before 7. My shift at the warehouse was changed. I'm just finishing the front area. I've already topped up all the bio and chem reactors and sterilized everything in the auto surgeries." "Thanks. That's great, Eva. How's your son doing?" "The new kidney hasn't given him any problems. We owe you." "Nothing more than what we agreed on," Aurora reminded Eva. "Cleaning services until the balance is paid off, and that's all." She hung her coat on a rack behind the sales counter, then went into the small kitchenette to make coffee. A picture of herself as a toddler with her mother and grandmother hung on the chipped tile wall over the counter. Aurora's family had always tried to help out where they could. Allowing Eva to work off the cost of her son's kidney was nothing new, although business had been down recently, and Aurora needed a new premium client or two to keep the books balanced. Squeak, squeak. It was the ancient cleaning cart Eva was pushing back to the closet. Something else that needed replacing when she had the money. Aurora sighed. "Oh, Eva, remember to mark your hours down before you go." Aurora waited for the front door to creak open and close, then sighed wistfully at the carefree toddler in the photo, filled her mug with coffee, and headed out front to open the shop. First, she updated the sale items on the front window display. Kidneys, a staple of the business, 50% off, free DIY class with every new insulin creator kit, and 20% off walk-in auto surgery. Aurora read through the list and added one more item: secure private bioreactors and auto surgery monthly rentals at competitive rates. Inquire within. Satisfied, she loaded the new list into the sign, unlocked the front door, and checked on the bioreactors. Most were empty. She adjusted the nutrients to one containing a growing heart, tapped the gauges on another with a nearly mature spleen, and made a note to inform the client growing the new thumb that it was ready. The bell over the front door chimed. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Aurora rushed out front. An older man in his 80s, leaning on a cane, was looking around the shop. "Sorry, I was just checking the bioreactors in the back room," Aurora apologized. "How can I help you?" "Heart drugs. I need to brew my own. Can you do that here?"
"Yes, of course."
"We stock all the materials for the most common ones, statins, beta blockers, that kind of thing. And I can order anything else you need with a day's notice. If you do all the work yourself, you only pay for the materials and equipment rental." The bell over the door rang again, and a man rushed in, a hoodie covering his head, one hand held against his shoulder, his eyes wildly scanning the back of the shop.
"Oh, Mr. Gagnon, I'll be with you as soon as I'm finished with this customer," Aurora assured.
Don't need help, Gagnon barked. Is my auto surgery ready? Aurora checked her list. Just cleaned this morning. I told you I don't want strangers in there, Gagnon complained. But periodically we need to— No one goes in! That's what I pay extra for, Gagnon growled. Blood was oozing between his fingers and dripping onto the white tile floor. He followed Aurora's eyes down to the growing dark red puddle. I don't need help, just my auto surgeon. Deal with your customer, Gagnon ordered, then headed to the private surgeries at the back of the shop. He stopped in front of the premium suite, let the door scan his iris, and then disappeared inside. He can be a bit testy, Aurora apologized to the older man, hoping her new customer hadn't noticed the trail of blood. But premium customers, like that one, pay the freight so I can offer the best prices in the zone to people like yourself. I only have a few of them, so the likelihood of you running into one is remote. Sorry about that. The man looked hesitant. Tell you what, if you commit to making your meds here for the next 90 days, I can offer you a 15% discount and we'll meet or beat any competitor's prices. Sure, okay, the older man agreed tentatively. Aurora hustled him off to the chem reactor lab and helped him get going, then pulled the ancient sanitizing cart out of its storage closet and began to clean up Gagnon's blood. There seemed to be an awful lot. The last thing Aurora needed was someone dying in one of her auto surgeries. She eyed the premium surgery with concern, then dropped the mop and banged on its door. Hey, are you all right in there? Do you need help? When there was no reply, Aurora rushed to the sales counter to override the lock, but the door clicked open before she barely took a step. I pay for privacy. Gagnon stuttered angrily, standing in front of the suite holding a plastic bag. There were no bloodstains on his hoodie, and the man had it pulled up so Aurora could barely see his face. Shoulders slumped, he edged by her, closing the suite's door. If I find out you've been in there, he warned, I'll take my business somewhere else. Of course, Mr. Gagnon, we won't go in, but we have to meet cleanliness regulations. It's clean. I take the garbage out myself. He held up a black plastic bag. Okay, but if I start smelling something— Gagnon rushed out the front door. Aurora watched him through the window cross the street, wait till no one was around, then toss the plastic bag in the trash and walk away, checking behind him every couple of steps. The man's mood swings were extreme. She never knew if she would be dealing with the nervous introvert who had just left, or the aloof jerk who never had time to talk. Ahem! Aurora twisted away from the window. Her new customer was standing at the counter with a small plastic bottle of pills. Oh, sorry, I was distracted. Did everything go well? I think so. The older man placed the bottle on the counter. I only made a few, to try. The price is certainly affordable, but you want to see how you'll do on them, Aurora added. Of course, I understand, but if you followed the directions, I can assure you those DIY pills are chemically identical to the name brands. She rang up the bill, and the older man placed his hand on the credit reader. I'm sure I'll be back. Thanks for the help. He pocketed the bottle and left. Aurora followed the man out, locked the door, and headed across the street to retrieve Gagnon's bag from the trash. A few minutes later, the bag's contents lay strewn across Aurora's work table. A hoodie with a small hole in the shoulder surrounded by drying blood, used Sani wipes from the auto surgery, also soaked in blood, and a transit ticket purchased at 5 a.m. from the Lions Park train station were all the bag contained. Nothing else. Aurora wasn't sure what she was expecting. The Sani wipes said that Gagnon had, as he claimed, cleaned up, and she had already known about the blood. She also knew she shouldn't be poking into a premium client's personal affairs. She couldn't afford to lose one. The chem reactors were run at a loss, and common transplants Aurora priced at break-even. It was how her family gave back to the community, which bordered the main transit line and had a lot of temporary encampments and gig workers. Premium clients could afford a clinic but chose not to use them, either because they wanted procedures a doctor would refuse to do or they wanted complete anonymity. Aurora knew Tyler Gagnon was probably not the client's real name, but that wasn't her business as long as the bills were being paid. So why was she standing at a table picking through the man's garbage? Aurora wasn't sure. Maybe it was intuition. the way the man acted or his obsession with privacy. Autosurgeons have a flawless performance record, and because the new liver is grown from your cells, there's no problem with rejection, Aurora was explaining to a middle-aged woman dressed in third-hand clothes, several sizes too large when Gagnon showed up. She ignored him and continued her sales pitch. There are detailed instructions to guide you through the whole process. Most people take the DIY route. It's not that hard these days. If you're not sure, I can help you, but that costs extra. Our terms are flexible and we offer payment plans, or I can help you get a low-interest loan from the Payday Advance shop across the street. We have a special arrangement with them. It had been 5 days since Gagnon walked in with the bloody hoodie. Despite the unusually warm afternoon, he was wearing a knitted cap pulled down over his ears. Aurora had never seen him without something on his head. He rushed past the sales counter, slumped over, his head pulled into his shoulders like a turtle, and his face forward so Aurora couldn't make eye contact. The door to his rental surgery and bioreactor slammed shut, and the in-use sign popped on. "Is that man in for a transplant?" the woman asked. "No. He's a regular, rents an autosurgeon for cosmetic surgery and that kind of thing." Aurora lied. She had no idea what Gagnon used the premium MediSuite for. "Thanks for all the information." The woman hesitated. "I'll think about it." "Don't wait too long. It takes a few weeks to grow if you need a new liver." "I'll consider that," she said, then left. Aurora suspected the woman had recently moved into one of the nearby encampments and wouldn't be back. She had no money, so even Kumar's self-serve's discounted prices were too much. When her mother ran the shop, they had enough business to offer a woman like that an organ and transplant for free. But the neighborhood had slowly changed over the years, so now few could afford to use the DIY MediCenter. Most months Aurora could barely pay her suppliers, and the skyrocketing costs weren't helping. The best she could do was offer services at cost, like the arrangement with Eva for her son's kidney. Eva had worked double shifts to save enough money to cover the feedstock for the bioreactor and was working off the rest by cleaning the shop. Aurora couldn't afford to do that again. She watched the woman through the window rummage in the trash can across the street. A beep from the shop monitor distracted her. "Operation complete. Premium surgery 1. A moment later, the door opened, and Gagnon emerged looking the same as when he had entered. Was he doing cosmetics in there? Aurora pushed the thought aside and raced to intercept the man before he left the shop. "Mr. Gagnon, wait, please." Caught off guard, Gagnon stopped and pulled his hoodie over his head so only his nose would stick out. Had he modded it? "What do you want?" he growled. "I'm paid up." "It's nothing like that," Aurora explained. "I don't know if you saw the woman I was talking to when you came in." "No." Gagnon started toward the door. "Please, Mr. Gagnon. Just a second of your time." Aurora moved to block him. "Please." "Make it quick then. That woman needs a liver but doesn't have the money. Your bioreactor feedstocks are full and you barely use them. I'm hoping you'd be willing to donate enough to grow a new organ for her. I just need the feedstocks. I'd grow it in one of the hourly rentals." "I don't do charity work. Now, if you don't mind, I want to go." Gagnon stepped around Aurora and left, walking upright, not stooped over, and his stutter was gone. It was the arrogant Gagnon. She would ask him again and hope to get him when he was nervous and less confident. It crossed her mind to peek into the man's premium rental. As the shop owner, she had the right to inspect her facilities for health code compliance. No, that was unethical, she told herself, and put the thought out of her mind. After a disappointingly slow day, Aurora closed the shop and headed to a little street-side restaurant her neighbor Mr. Sandhu ran. When she got there, most of the tables were empty. "Slow day for you two?" she asked as Sandhu brought her a coffee. "Yeah, it's been slow for days. People gotta pay their rent this week. Food comes second. Your usual?" Aurora nodded. "Yes, thanks." Sandhu left her alone, and she turned her attention to an old, cracked, flat screen he left on for customers. It was streaming a local news feed showing a grainy CCTV security vid of a man in a hoodie rushing through the frame, Private Security in Pursuit. A caption read, "The only footage of a man wanted in connection with a series of robberies and assaults in the Lions Park area." The short clip played again, then froze on a blurred image of the suspect. There was something about the hoodie. Aurora moved closer to the screen. A dark stain was on the right shoulder. Blood? "Can I get my order to go?" she called to the kitchen. It was dark when Aurora unlocked the shop door and slipped inside. She beelined to the rear, where she kept the trash cans and ripped the lids off. "I'm too late," she cursed. "Eva must have taken the garbage out before she left." Disappointed, Aurora walked back to the front of the shop. Now, she wasn't sure if the blood stain had been on the right or the left shoulder, or even if the hoodie she had seen in the fuzzy security video was the same style as the one Gagnon had been wearing last week. Where had he purchased the transit ticket she'd found in his trash? She couldn't recall. "You're letting your imagination get the better of you," she reprimanded herself. "Because he's secretive doesn't mean he's up to something." The glowing green status sign over the premium suite caught her eye. It was empty, and she guessed Gagnon wouldn't return for another day. Aurora could slip in and liberate enough feedstock to grow the encampment woman a new liver, and the man would never know she had been in there. She hesitated. She would be breaking the terms of the rental agreement, giving Gagnon a reason to sue her, and she would be breaking every rule her mother and grandmother had drilled into her head. But that woman needed a liver. "It's my shop, and I have the right to know what goes on in it," she assured herself. Emboldened, Aurora walked over to the front sales counter, logged into the admin system, and unlocked the premium suite. The inside of the surgery smelt of industrial-strength sanitizer. True to his word, Gagnon had been keeping the surgery and bioreactor hospital clean. Nothing looked out of place. The arms of the robotic surgeon were properly stored in airtight antiseptic plastic sleeves. The scalpels, scissors, retractors, and other instruments were in the sterilizer as they should be. Aurora was disappointed. What had she expected? Bloodied clothes, stacks of stolen jewelry and cash? Illegal drugs brewing in the chem reactor? She was about to leave when she remembered the reason she was there. The bioreactor feedstocks. She'd just take enough for the liver, then when she had more cash, she'd replace what she had taken. No harm done, right? The bioreactor was tucked away in an alcove. Aurora touched a control built into the wall of the surgery. A panel slid back, and the reactor began to extend out. She needed to get to the back where the feed lines were located and use the bleeder valves to siphon off what she needed. Gagnon had covered the glass tank on the top of the machine, so Aurora initially thought it wasn't in use, but the status display said otherwise. The strange man regularly used a small amount of feedstock, so what was he growing or storing in the tank? Curiosity got the better of her. Carefully, Aurora lifted a corner of the cover. She didn't recognize what was inside, then removed the whole thing to get a better look. Floating in the center was a small, wrinkled, almond-shaped gray mass. "What's he up to? It looks like part of a brain." Aurora pulled out her handheld and took a picture. "Identify organ," she whispered. "It's an amygdala!" Aurora jerked up, almost tripping. Gagnon was standing in the surgery entrance, a big knife in one hand. "I guessed you might try to take some of my feedstock," he smirked. "You're a softie, Miss Kumar. Always helping the street urchins that crawl into your little shop. You just picked the wrong night to do it." It's not like that. I would have replaced the stock next week when the rental fees came in." Gagnon suddenly swayed, putting his hand out to steady himself against the wall. "You okay?" Aurora quizzed. "I would be if I didn't have to deal with you." Gagnon dismissed, waving the knife at her. "Get away from the bioreactor." You've grown an amygdala? Even in the zone, brain modding is illegal, Mr. Gagnon," Aurora pointed out. The man stepped fully into the surgery and leaned against the wall beside the door, breathing heavily. "Are you sure you're okay? You don't look well." "None of your business. I'll be fine once I deal with you." Gagnon growled, then grabbed his forehead, almost doubling over. His hood fell back, revealing a shaved spot above the ear with a fresh scar in the center. "You've already done the transplant," Aurora gasped. "What's in the tank then? A backup? An improved version?" Gagnon grimaced as he straightened. my original amygdala. Have you ever been stricken by anxiety and fear, Miss Kumar? He was sweating and almost yelling. Well, I have. It was so bad that it took all my strength to simply walk down a street. I was so sure something awful was about to happen. And meeting people terrified me. What did they think of me? What did they want? Was I saying the right things? I could barely talk. My life was a constant hell. I tried everything, drugs, desensitizing therapy. None of it worked. Finally, everyone gave up and told me I'd have to endure my fear. I got mad and refused to simply roll over and accept my fate. It took years of research, huddling in a room I was too afraid to leave. That's not a life, Miss Kumar. I wanted more. It all came down to the way my brain was wired. All the fear was hard-coded into my amygdala. Gagnon winced again. So I designed a replacement with it all removed. No fear, no anxiety at all. And it's wonderful. You can't begin to imagine how amazing it feels to be free of fear, Miss Kumar. Anything. I can do anything. Get into a fight, play chicken with a speeding car, walk along a cliff edge, rob a few stores, maybe even kill. He gave Aurora a feral smile. All without fear or remorse. Maybe I went too far, but I can't go back to the way I was. Not now, not after being freed from the talons of constant terror. He brandished the knife menacingly at Aurora. Sweat was beginning to bead on Gagnon's forehead. You didn't use your own cells, did you? Aurora accused, stepping carefully away from the bioreactor, looking around the surgery for something she could use to protect herself. I bet no one would help you harvest your neural stem cells, she added, trying to keep Gagnon talking. That's illegal as well. So where'd you get them? The black market? No, through a friend of a friend. The cells were from a universal donor, he explained, edging closer. You idiot! There's no such thing as a universal donor, Aurora said, positioning herself so the operating table was between her and Gagnon. Your body's rejecting the transplant. That's why you're sick. It's why I come back here every few days, to swap in my original amygdala. But only until I recover. I can't stand living with the fear, he yelled. You don't know what it's like, and no one does unless they experience it. Gagnon staggered forward, bumping into the operating table. That explains the extreme mood swings. Aurora backed away until she was stopped by the wall. You couldn't hide them, and you're here sooner than usual, so your body's rejection is speeding up. Gagnon suddenly leapt over the table, slashing at Aurora, narrowly missing. Cornered, Aurora held up her arms and waited for the pain, but nothing happened. She opened her eyes. Gagnon was piled in a heap of arms and legs on the surgery floor, unconscious. Mr. Gagnon? Aurora leaned over the man after the robot surgeon had finished and retracted back into the wall. Are you awake, Mr. Gagnon? The man's eyes blinked open, then darted around. What happened? I don't remember. You fainted when you attacked me. Your body went into shock, rejecting the amygdala you grew. I had the robot surgeon replace your original before you died. This one, she held up a storage container with the organ, will kill you if you put it in again. I'm my old self. Please don't turn me in. There is that string of crimes, and you tried to kill me. It was that thing, not me. He nodded at the container, then turned away to avoid Aurora's glare. Here's how it's going to go. I'm not going to turn you in as long as you agree to keep renting the premium surgery and let me use it to help people who can't afford to fix themselves. An hour later, Aurora watched Gagnon get nervously into an autocab. Too anxious to walk the streets at night, he insisted she order one. The autocab whisked the frightened man away into the night, leaving her alone in the store with the container holding the faulty amygdala. She just had to incinerate it. Then she could go home. Aurora stared in the container at the little almond-shaped organ. What would it be like to live completely free of fear? The amygdala had been grown from a universal donor. She had lied to Gagnon. They did exist. Just a small fraction of people like Gagnon couldn't use them. Instead of heading to the incinerator, Aurora opened the top of the cryogenic freezer and gently placed the storage container inside.
This is where we like to recommend other podcasts, and today I want to introduce you to Quest Friends. Quest Friends is a supernatural audio cartoon where 5 best friends explore everyday life in the afterlife. From trash possum Pokemon to overdramatic noir mysteries to the honestly pitiful skeleton of Grigory Rasputin. Listen, as these friends play through absurd adventures inspired by cartoons like The Owl House and Gravity Falls. The characters are over the top, the comedy is good-spirited, and the puns never, ever end. You can find more information about Quest Friends at questfriendspodcast.com, or you can start listening right away by searching Quest Friends with an exclamation point on your favorite podcasting app. You can help us create original content twice a month by heading over to ko-fi.com/makeshiftstories and making a one-time donation, or becoming an ongoing supporter at patreon.com/makeshiftstories. And if you can, please leave us a review or rating wherever you're listening to the podcast. It helps new listeners discover us. If you'd like to connect with us, please email makeshiftstories@gmail.com or visit our website at makeshiftstories.com. We release Makeshift Stories around the beginning and middle of the month. This month's story was written by Alan V. Hare and read by Kathleen Connolly. Opening and closing themes were composed and recorded by Matthew Erdmann. Audio production and editing by Vicada Studios. Makeshift Stories is released under a Creative Commons non-commercial, attribution, no derivative license.